Okay, welcome everybody to another slightly different video today. I'm going to just give another quick tournament report from a tournament I played at the weekend. For people in the UK, this was a Mega Modern held by Axion Now. They usually hold them in Milton Keynes, but this one was in Birmingham. I think I've had a few comments on the channel from people that have gone, so if you went, I hope you went well and hope you had a good time. For me, yeah, had an amazing time at the event, really well run. So yeah, big thanks to Axion Now who put on the event, and there are more exciting things to come from them, I believe. But thought I'd just give a quick overview. So there was 278 players at the event. I decided to run 4-color through, and this was the list I settled on. Had a decent run of it. Ended up with 6 wins, 2 losses, and a draw. Good enough for 22nd place. And yeah, just thought I'd let me know some general thoughts on it. So I went with this list. It's pretty standard in terms of in some ways, but not in others. So it's quite similar to the list that I think I've run through in my most recent 4-color league, popularized by I think someone on Modo called Martinez DP. So you cut the kind of a lot of stuff, and we're running more ephemerate and more creatures. So you've got the standard 4, obviously you've got the Four Teferis, Solitudes, Time Revelers, Brennan 6, Abundant Growths, but then we cut the expressive iterations and we run more creatures. So running 2 Wandering Mind, 2 Wall of Omens, running 2 Eternal Witness, and we are running the Time Warp, which lets you take infinite turns with either Brennan 6 emblem or a Ephemerate Eternal Witness loop. So how did the tournament go? So yeah, we started out with a match against GDS. They weren't playing Gigantha. Didn't see any reason not to play Gigantha as a companion, but managed to get the win there. Solitude is just really good. Wall of Omen's kind of impressed all day. It just blocks Ragavan, incredibly well. It just means that they can never get through their Ragavans. Blocks other aggressive decks as well, so that was really good. So managed to block their early stuff, Solitude their late stuff, and then Ephemerate and our value train just kind of gets there. So next up was Hardened Scales. Now this was really difficult actually. I think it can be okay, but they've got this new patchwork automation that's really difficult to deal with. It has Ward 2, so I think the route to victory here is probably some sort of Solitude or Fury early with Ephemerate, but to deal with the patchwork thing, you can't do it until turn 2 because you have to pay 2 mana to get around the ward, which then leaves you little room to Ephemerate as well. So you're really relying on those. I was running a little bit light on the artifact hate as well, so I wasn't running any copies of Force of Vigor in the sideboard. So I just kind of got steamrolled. Definitely winnable, but I don't think the matchup is favoured. They're just kind of doing too many things at once. Arcbound Ravager is just really brutal. So yeah, I think your best shots for victory in that matchup are kind of hoping for a Solitude blowout where they sacrifice a lot of stuff to a Ravager, and then you can Solitude the one big creature, or early doors get Fury going, or if you can manage to hold on to Omnath, then that's obviously really good as well. I did have Supreme Verdict at the sideboard, didn't really see it, didn't have too much sideboarding going on for this, so it just kind of got crushed there. But yeah, that's the way it goes. Round 3, we were against the Mirror. So it was more the classic Mirror. It was the Ragavan version where just jamming 4 Ragavans into this deck seems pretty good. Managed to get the win 2 and 1. So I think this version is probably just about favoured in the Mirror. Wall of Omens blocks their Ragavan, as we said before, and the whole Eternal Witness Time Warp loop as a late game kind of finisher is just kind of more top end than anything they've got going on. So yeah, managed to get that. Worth saying that overall this deck, it felt very, very powerful, but it took a hell of a long time to win. All of my rounds went to time or near time. One reason that the time warp was necessary was I don't think the time warp is necessarily that great. You're doing a lot of powerful things anyway. You don't necessarily, when you get the whole Eternal Witness Ephemerate loop going on, probably blink, sort of returning anything to your hand like Counterspell or Unholy Heat or whatever you need is probably just as good, and it's probably going to win you the game anyway. But in these tournaments, Time Warp really did come into its own just because it was a way to win the game quickly. So in this round 3 against the Mirror, the game went really long. We won one each. We were getting close to time, and then all of a sudden I was just able to take infinite turns with Time Warp, Eternal Witness and Ephemerate, and that just closes out the game. Opponent concedes, and we get the win in what might have otherwise been a draw. So in tournaments, I think we're just breaking the rounds for now. Just for a couple of tips. You have to play quickly with this deck. You will make mistakes, or I certainly did. But it is doing very powerful things. But yeah, don't be surprised to go to time in a lot of your rounds, especially in the longer days. I didn't really have too much time for lunch and sort of getting food and stuff, which in a long paper day tournament is more crucial. Modo's fine. You can take a break between rounds. If worst comes to worst, while you're sideboarding, which doesn't count on the clock, you can go and grab yourself a snack or whatever. But the games do go very long, so be prepared for that if you take this to a longer tournament. So round number 4 was Murktide. This was a very popular deck list on the day. In fact, I think there was certainly 2 copies in the top 8, might have been 3. But I feel like it's one that's favoured for us. The only thing we're really scared of is either an unchecked Ragavan, where your opponent goes turn Ragavan on the play and hits you a bunch of times while holding up counter spells for any removal you do, or a quick unanswered early Murktide, where if we can't answer it immediately and my opponent can untap with counterspell to protect it, then that's an issue. But we've got things to get around that, so we can obviously Solitude is great against Murktide Regent. Icefang Coatl can block it. Teferi Time Raveler bouncing it is really strong. So yeah, overall favoured in this matchup. Brought in the Endurance is really good here. I brought in Sanctifying Vec. They just struggled to kill this. It blocks Ragavan forever. It shrinks my opponent's graveyard. So we brought in all those. Veil of Summer is really good because if like I said, my opponent goes for an early Murktide, and you manage to go something like Solitude, holding up Veil of Summer, that's really good. Also, Supreme Verdict came in clutch in some of these matchups. I think it was game 3 in this match. I was kind of getting wrecked by this massive Murktide. My opponent had counterspelled my Teferis, peeled the Supreme Verdict, verdicted away the Murktide, obviously can't be countered, and then proceeded to win the game from there. So all in all, I think we're favoured in that matchup. Don't be afraid to block with your Wandering Minds. If you can block with Wandering Mind and ephemerate it before damage, that's obviously really good. Get a bit of value out of your Wandering Mind. We can obviously cut Spreading Seas in this matchup. So yeah, I think that was fine. Round number 5 was another Mirror, which this was my one draw, unintentional draw. We won game 1 with the whole Eternal Witness. Eternal Witness is getting us infinite value. But then game 2, my opponent just kind of outvalued me. I ended up with very few cards in hand, with my opponent having, sort of Omnath going. So, that one did go to time. We were one game apiece, so we took an unintentional draw there, which isn't ideal. But better than a loss, I suppose. Next round was Affinity, so the kind of 8-cast version with Thoughtcast and Thought monitors. They were running a one of Urza, which we saw game 2, I believe. But I think this matchup's probably favourable. Worth noting that it's quite key to keep their board fairly clear early on. The way they win this matchup is usually either very fast starts where they get multiple creatures down and then start drawing loads of cards with Thoughtcast and Thought Monitor. And for that, they need artifacts on the field. So if you can get an early Fury, or you can start killing all their stuff with Unholy Heats and Prismatic Endings, that's really good. So make sure you do keep their board kind of clear early on. And then the other way they can win is kind of Urza's Saga. So worth keeping in your Spreading Seas, keeping them holding them back for Urza's Saga is always a good one. So yeah, I think the matchup in general is favoured. You can also bring in Supreme Verdict out of the board. Next round was Red White Stoneblade, a list popularised by Aspiring Spike, where they use cheap creatures. They've got Ragavan and the Fervent Champion to equip things like Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of War and Peace, and just kind of beat you down with these creatures, and Stoneforge Mystic to find them all. Managed to get there in this one as well. Again, Solitude proving very, very good. Just the ability to, the opponent goes for a creature and then they go to equip. They've paid the equip costs and then you just wreck them with a Solitude. They've used a lot of mana and they don't really get anything out of it. Sanctifier Vet coming in handy as well to just block all of their creatures. Although notably they did have the sword that gives protection from white, so that not as much of a slam dunk as it could be. We had all of our Besages and Aethergus as well, so able to close that one out. Spreading Seas proved surprisingly effective in cutting my opponent off mana. They're very mana intensive for quite a lot of their stuff, so did manage to get that as well. Next up was Amulet. This was my second loss of the day. We took one game off them. But I feel like that's a bad matchup. I'm happy to take any advice on this matchup. I think, we're just a little slow, especially with our two. We've only got 2 counterspell in the main. Routes to victory. You can Solitude their Primeval Titan, but they do now run more threats than we can kind of deal with. Even if you were Solitude all of their Primeval Titans, they do have the Cultivator Colossus as a backup threat. Can't really rely on counterspell because my opponent does run Cavern of Souls. I think some of the best ways, you have to keep the board clear of, if you can get an early Spreading Seas on a Urza's Saga, or you can manage to Beseiju their bounce lands early on, just kind of cutting them off mana as best as possible. And then we do have Mages of the Moon in the sideboard, which is obviously amazing. And an extra Beseiju if you can combine Beseiju with Brennan 6. It's not, Beseiju and Brennan 6 is not guarantee victory. They can come back really quickly with making multiple land drops in a turn with Dryad or with Azusa. But that's definitely one route to victory. Obviously you have to kill all of their Titans, but I think most of the games I won were the game I won was where we managed to stop a Titan never hitting the field by dealing with their mana with Spreading Seas, dealing with all of their kind of Dryads and things with our removal, and then Eternal Witness. That was it. It was the Eternal Witness Solitude Ephemerate loop that I had kind of going on, so that my opponent could just never stick a creature. But we did take losses, games 1 and 3 being on the draw. It is a very hard matchup, and something I want to look at going forward. But that was taking our second loss. And then final round was against Murktide again. Not really much more to say. Did exactly the same as before. One thing to mention is endurance is really good in this matchup. I think I forgot to mention that before. The opponent doesn't do too much if you just get rid of their graveyard. So if you can endurance and then ephemerate it to just repeatedly get rid of their graveyard, it stops Dragon's Rage Channeler, and you can block Dragon's Rage Channeler very well with this creature, and then it stops them getting Murktide Regent down, stops their Unholy Heat being able to kill our Omnath, or our Furies. So yeah, pretty key there. So yeah, overall on the day, really happy with how it went. I don't know. I think I would run the list again, but with changes. I think I'm going to try the Elementals build, which looks to close out the games a bit quicker, maybe, just because the deck does take, as I say, an awfully long time when you're in these long paper tournaments, and it can get pretty draining. But yeah, overall, really happy with it. I think Wandering Mind is probably not quite as good as I thought it was. I'd probably look to cut those. They under-impressed a little bit on the day. Wall of Omens over-impressed. Just an early thing to do with your mana that blocks Ragavan is just proved fine. And I guess with this, no one really wants to point an Unholy Heat at a Wall of Omens just to get their Ragavan through. People will. But yeah, so this over-impressed. But yeah, I think my next steps is to try taking these 4 out and cutting some other things for the Elementals build. It actually did well at the tournament I went to. It ended up, I think, certainly in the finals. I think getting second place. So yeah, that's on the list to try next. Like I say, the Time Warp is probably not as necessary as I thought. It does let you beat Infinite Life, but I didn't see too much of that going around on the day. So yeah, next step is try the Elemental build, see how that goes, and take it from there. But yeah, hope you enjoyed my kind of rambling thoughts on the tournament. Again, thanks to Axion Now for putting on such a great event. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've got any tips or anything on the matchups I face, any advancements on the deck list, and yeah, I will see you again soon for some more leagues. Cheers.